Okay. And what are your sort of dance? You know, you've come from the dance world, choreography. I mean, it's still on your website. It's obviously something you're still sort of deeply in. What do some of your dance friends think of these kind of things you've gotten into?
Well, I think, one I told you, mentioned this friend who was like, or just another dance person who was like, wow, Michelle, when you say this stuff, I actually believe you, but I don't when someone else says it, or I'm willing to go there. And I think what happened was, just through my work as a teacher and the work I did as a performer, that was more of my early career. Then I started choreographing later. I think people grew to trust me.
Hmm.
So when
Hmm.
I got certified in Body Talk, I had been teaching already in New York and some international teaching for at least 10 years already. And I was like, hey, I got certified in this thing. I don't even know what it is, but I want to, like, even when I went to study it, I said, I don't know if I'm going to become a practitioner, but I know it's going to change my life. So I emailed the students I was working with, and people came to me and tried the work. And again, it's like what it makes possible. Is it actually helping? And if not, it's not your thing right now or ever. And I think we need that diversity in how we approach our issues too.
I'm glad there's many methods out there because I feel like different things, and even in my own life at different times, like I do craniosacral therapy, or I did before COVID, and 10 years before I would have said, I'm not interested in that. It's just someone holding my head. That's all bollocks, and now I really enjoy it. So even within my own life, there's been some sort of change in different approaches. I like gentler approaches than I used to, and certainly different kinds of people seem to resonate, I'll use that word, with different approaches. So it seems to be, for me, it's positive that there's a lot out there. Sometimes I worry there's so much a profusion of things that it's just kind of confusing. I was in a natural health center a while back, and they had, I'd say, at least 200 leaflets from 200 different kinds of alternative health practitioners. And it's like, imagine walking in with let's say you've got, I don't know, a bad knee, right? And going, okay, where do I even begin? So I think that's potentially an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I learned from Body Talk, which I think is echoed in what I was saying, Bruce Lipton talks about, is that your body does have an innate wisdom. I think coming through it, and I feel like the more we tune into that compass, we land in the right place at the right time with the right person. And if we don't, you have the strength to acknowledge it and you course correct. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
just information, and then you can course correct and find something that serves you. I think confusion actually is a result of the subconscious mind trying to hold a person back.
So again, confusion is a result of the subconscious mind trying to hold someone back. I don't
From
know what
change.
that means.
So up until we're 7,
Yeah.
we're basically sponge brain. We're just taking in all the information. Our brain isn't mostly in theta. So we can't reject. We don't have a conscious mind yet. We can't analyze or reject things. So that becomes our framework for how we live. And a lot of times, unless a person goes into conscious change or takes these things like injuries and setbacks and disappointments as indicators, like, okay, something in my set of belief systems that I got up until I was 7 is not working. And this is a moment to embrace change, to take a look. What's not working here? It's not making what I want possible.
Uh-huh.
So what happens when we approach something that actually is going to ask us to expand, the closer we get to it, the fear can get stronger, because the subconscious mind is like, you're alive today, don't do anything differently. So it takes a lot of conscious intention, and what I would say, like a solid, like I'm going to say heart, like a tuning in with that way, being in touch with that way, to override all the things that have helped us survive up until this day.
And that is the basic issue in any change work. And there's different ways of framing that issue. But essentially, people have patterns that are pretty deep because they've been going since they were pretty young.
Yeah.
And, that has helped them survive up to this point. And, we've all got these patterns, and they're pretty, whether we look at that from an embodiment lens or a conscious, unconscious lens, there's different lenses, but that is the basic challenge any practitioner is working with, is things are ingrained, right? And it's tricky to go against that because of resistance, because of just habit as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, not only survive, but belong. Like, a
Uh-huh.
lot of these patterns we formed because this was how we connected to our family or our community, even if it was abusive.
Some sense of safety, some sense of control, some sense of connection with other human beings, even if that connection was unhealthy. human beings will seek unhealthy connection over no connection, right? And you'll see like a little kid playing out doing this, getting attention by being naughty, and it's like even being shouted at is better than being ignored, kind of thing for the kid.
Totally. Yeah.
Wow, we're fucked up, huh? What do we do? What do we do?
Well, we keep evolving, you know. I mean, I think it's kind of, for me, I see it almost like an adventure.
Nice frame. Yeah.
It's like, what a gift that we get to, like, how boring would life be if we didn't get to evolve?
Right. That's a nice frame. And I think we can approach it, as you say, like, this is an adventure. I sometimes think of it as a privilege. Like, I'm in a place where I have enough stability, financial resources, health, where I actually have spare energy to do just a half-hour kind of check-in with one of my therapists today. And it was like, wow, I actually have a bit of energy and a bit of money and a bit of time. And most of human history, my ancestors were just surviving, and this is a huge privilege I have and a huge adventure, as you say. And like, I love being a learner, and this all takes learning. So I think it's quite interesting, like what frame people have around change work, because everybody has some sort of an implicit change around it. And some clients turn up and they're like, great, let's change. And other clients turn up and they're like, oh God, I have to change. They've clearly got a very different story as to what transformation is.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and for you, and what you just said, I'm sure you had to get over a lot of loyalty, conscious or subconscious, to your family or your ancestral line to be able to be in the place you are now.
Yeah, I looked at stuff. I was doing stuff around money today, and it was really interesting to go, okay, a lot of what I see around money, it's a nice word you use, loyalty. It's people like, well, I'm poor, my family's poor, I've always been poor, we've always been poor, that's my tribe. And it's like, people don't realize, it's like they start making some money, maybe they have a talent, they start getting paid. Of course they're going to sabotage it. Of course they are, because it's better to be poor and have togetherness and belonging than to be rich and feel like you've been thrown out of your cave,
Yeah.
So the idea of loyalty, I think, is very important there.
Yeah, and I have a feeling you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I like you for saying things that I don't like, though. Let me just say that ahead of whatever it is.
So I feel like what that process is you're letting go of something of a lower vibration to move to a higher vibration. And I really feel like I don't know how you feel about, like, you're like, one's highest self knows that. And like, I believe we do have that. You could call it innate wisdom, you could call it the blueprint for health or whatever it is. I think whether we're conscious of it or not, this philosophy works for me, that we are, like, life is supporting more life. And I think you're doing that, even though it may seem like a disservice to someone else and they're going to hate you for it or whatever, you're creating more life. And that's what we're here to do. And if we get our minds out of the way and the judgments and the shame and the guilt, then more people can be expressing. And that's felt in the body. We know that. We know what it feels like to be small. We know what it feels like to be stuck. And we know what it feels like to be free and empowered. So how can we help more people to step into that and to feel safe, free, and empowered? Like, that's so exciting to me. What a different world we would have. And not only feel that, but also to feel like, to acknowledge what it feels like to not feel that. Because we need that first. Like, oh, this is stuck. Oh, I've been holding my breath for like 20 years. I just started holding my breath right now. I can breathe. Hey, what's up?
Hey, let's breathe.
Yeah.
Who do you like working with, Michelle? Do you have like particular kind of clients you really enjoy, like with attitude or demographic or problem they come with? I mean, is there like a particular kind of person that you lights you up?
Yeah, I think because I'm a dancer, I love people who are open to their creativity, or they have some, like, most of the people I've worked with have been dancers or artists, or just like, this person who works in finance but is totally creative and totally willing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I'm such a heart-centered person too. If a person is willing to, like, drop below that analytical mind and be in that openness, but I love the questioning too. That's who I love working with. My practice has been primarily women too.
Mm-hmm.
But
like,
I do
conscious choice or just accident?
It's just been what it is, or like the trail will lead to, this population or that population, because it's all been referral for the most part. So, but I love working with all people, however they
I like the
identify.
variety as well, Michelle. You know, for me, having different. Interestingly, I had a client yesterday from India, and
Mm.
he came on. He had the Indian robes on, like dressed, you know, kind of traditional style. And his background was like this Indian palace with sort of, you know, things billowing in the breeze. You know, kind of just very nice place and very Indian looking. And then he came out and he said the exact same things I'd heard a British client say one day before.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of this just beautiful moment of like, in this divided world that was like, we're all suffering the same crap, the same challenges. It was like, you know, I struggled to say no, I struggled to have boundaries. And like an English woman who was telling me that the day before. And it
Yeah,
was this wonderful moment of like, even though we have different cultures, and he, you know, was talking about his Hindu background and how that was part of it. And, you know, there was a cultural piece there about his religion, his family and stuff that was a bit different from England, but it was basically the same stuff I'd heard in England just one day before. And it was just,
totally.
somehow it was touching to me. I think we're in this very divided world right now. And it was almost beautiful to see that we, you know, people have very similar challenges from different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to we want to connect and be seen, and
Mm.
we want to feel freedom. And I feel like, you know, even if it's like in the womb, you subconsciously knew that connection. Um, I feel like there's something that Feldenkrais said, and I turned it into like a movement score at some point. Like my body remembers the experience of freedom. And it's almost like through knowing it once, it will continue to, I believe, realign towards that freedom. So I think, you know, yeah, the device there, yeah, we are divided by certain things, but the diversity is incredible. We need it. Otherwise we're going to turn into like a one field of corn, you know.
One monoculture, global cornfield. Like,
Cornfield.
you've been in the Midwest too long. I think it's
I
getting
know.
you. It's getting you. You need to go back to New York, Michelle. It's where I
It's
come
hard.
from, by the way, is like the Midwest. It's just corn as far as the eye can see where I come from.
You
East
get
Anglia.
me.
It's the
Yeah.
breadbasket of England where I come from. So it's very much like Iowa from what I can gather. Okay, interesting. Did a little birdie tell me you're very expensive as a coach? And this is something I'm no, just to be clear, no accusation, no problem. I
Yeah.
actually find it interesting.
Mm.
Did I hear that rumor right?
I think it's relative, but what has been beautiful for me is that money asks me to evolve.
Okay. What does that mean? Money asks me to evolve.
So in order to come to the truth of what I wanted to charge for my services, I had to get really honest with myself and
Uh-huh.
not hide
Sure.
behind any belief systems. And since we're on this embodiment talk, you know, that's changing literally how I walk through the world.
Yes. Yes. And this has been what I've been doing stuff on for 2 days now. So this is sort of alive for me somehow. And I heard this, and you're doing. And can I ask what you charge for a session, or you know? It's a very un-British thing to do. It's very taboo money in Britain, anyway, in many countries, but particularly here.
Yeah, and I think that's something to look at too, because if we can't talk about it, how does it move? So my one-on-one work starts at 15,000 currently
$15,000,
as
and that's
of.
like your basic starter package of what 10 sessions? What would that be?
It's a VIP day. So a person works with me. We do a 4-hour workday together,
Nice.
and 8 weeks of follow-up support via email and text.
Great. I have a friend who's a friend who's a trauma therapist, and she only works with millionaires. Like that's an absolute requirement to be, you know, one of her trauma therapists, and she's on call 24/7. It's all sorts of criteria around it, but it similarly has these very large packages. And how is that? Like some people listening to this might be shocked. I can imagine some of them are judging you. To be clear, I am not. To be very clear.
Fine.
So how is that to sort of move into that realm?
So it's exactly what I said. It asked me to evolve. And I
Mhm.
could find myself, you know, I used to run, I started a low cost clinic, health, like holistic clinic. In the old neighborhood I lived in Brooklyn, where I had different practitioners, craniosacral therapists, massage therapists, acupuncturists, myself as a body talk practitioner. I can't even remember what else. Like, and people would come in, and people could come in for sessions from, I think they started at like $15 to $40.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that I ended up like paying for that, you know, like it was exhausting me,
Right.
and just like arranging everything and like, great, I got $60 today or whatever. And then I took it to a yoga clinic and just did it myself. And that was fine too, but I could feel like I love this, but something is not aligned here. And I had to come to the truth of wanting to charge a lot more. At the same time, I have a deep desire to serve a lot of people.
How does that balance?
Because I have time to
Frees up
write
time.
write a free email newsletter to every single week. I just talked to a woman on the phone. She's like, you have helped me so much. She has not paid me a cent.
Yeah, particularly with the sort of content marketing model. I like this model of marketing because it means I'm encouraged through the marketing model to put out a lot of, like, this podcast, 350 episodes or whatever we're on now.
That's
It's all completely free for anyone who wants it. It's a huge library of resource, but it's also part of my marketing. So I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. I feel like it's a good investment of my time. And also I like that probably something like 500,000 people have heard these podcasts by now. And
it's a beautiful
huge
thing.
number. I'm imagining 500,000 people in a stadium. It's like bigger than Wembley Arena, the biggest stadium in Britain. And I'm like, wow, I never imagined I would reach that many people. And I hope in a positive way. And, that supports other business models. And there can be a sort of Robin Hood principle with some of this, can't there, in terms of sort of freeing up time and space. And there's also another part of me that just says, well, why not? Why should you shouldn't have to justify that with doing charity work or whatever. Why not?
When you're justifying it, there's some part of you that's still on the defense.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the place where we realize we have the freedom to choose, and there's so much ignorance in the world that we don't realize that we're choosing stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And if people start to learn that, I think we start to change things.
People don't always.
I want to say one more thing about the money thing.
Yeah, no, I want to keep talking about it. It's great. It just happens to be a live topic for me today. So I like talking about this.
I mean, it was also for me when I invested highly in myself.
Yeah.
That's when stuff really started to change. So, and that's different for everybody. And I'm not here to serve every person in the world either.
Yeah.
And that was like letting go of the caretaker part of myself. So I had to evolve this compulsive part that's trying to take care of everybody else to make myself feel better.
Yes.
That's not healthy.
Some people, I think, frame their low paid work as some sort of charity gig, but actually it's the only thing they can do psychologically. B, it's often coming from an extremely unhealthy pattern of trying to save the world or caretake or something else, their own self-esteem issues, it's a sort of, and I think of what I invest in myself, I've been doing this work 20 years, every week I probably pay about 5 high-end professionals to help me in terms of my own embodiment, psychology, therapy, whatever. And it's like, there's a huge investment in that. So that's what really people are paying for. And it's a funny thing happened the other day. A client phoned up my secretary and said, we want to book a session with Mark. And she said, he's too busy. He's not taking any clients, but she didn't want to say that. So she just threw a ridiculous figure at them and said, oh, you probably can't afford his one-to-one work. It's blah. And she said, very high figure. And they went, okay, fine. Yeah. And then she had to phone me and apologize. Said, I'm really sorry, Mark, I've got you a new client, but it's really like 10 times more than we're used to charging. But
what did you charge?
What's that? It depends on what the work was. And this isn't contracted yet, so I'd rather not say, but it's significantly more than I'm normally used to charging. So I generally would charge for an hour, like 250 pounds, which is like about $300. And this is several times more than that. And it depends on the client. If it's a CEO of a large company or whatever, I might go for more than that. But this is, that's a decent coaching rate. And it was just interesting. It's like, okay, how many times is just having a limiting belief that you can't get paid more than, say, 200 or 300, which is, considered a sort of good hourly rate for coaching in the UK. Just this instance was just really peculiar. It was like, oh, okay, maybe we've actually been screwing ourselves here by putting this figure out to certain clients anyway, Yeah,
I also feel like I've learned that I can't make assumptions about what someone's desire or what they want to make possible too.
Right, that's their choice, right? That's actually, like, I don't want to take the piss out of them. It's actually it's their free choice if they want to pay that. The other thing I'm thinking is, because I'm doing stuff at scale now, like we just sold an online product. It's going to sell probably about 300 units by the time it's finished. And it took me, say, 8 hours to film. I have to go, okay, opportunity cost. If I can film something in 8 hours and it brings in £25,000, from the scalable product, which is the way I like reaching lots of people at a lower cost. It's a sort of another model I have rather than expensive one-to-one. I've got to balance any one-to-one work against that, right? So it's like, okay, that's £2,000 an hour of my time. Does that make sense? So if I'm doing one-to-one work for an hour where I could be filming a product which I can sell to 300, 400, 500,000 people, my hourly rate should reflect that, or else I'm actually screwing myself over with the opportunity cost there. And that's where it goes. It's a bit of a head fuck, because I was brought up to believe, there's a fair price for something. And it's a very different way of thinking.
Well, look at what you just did with your body when you said that too.
What did I do with my body?
You said there's a fair price. You made a fist and your body got a little,
Yeah, there's a contraction there. Like, I did that, didn't I? Yeah. And I'm not sure I believe that anymore. Like that sort of belief I was raised with, that there's an apple should cost this much. It's like, well, how much do you want the apple?
Yeah, and there's like, who's shoulding? Like, what does shoulding do?
Who's saying that, right?
Like I say, we got to stop shoulding all over ourselves, because everything is so relative. And I think the only thing we can really gauge by is our own inner truth, and that's like the hardest job.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest job, because then you are letting go of a lot of loyalty at times. You're letting go of the conditioning that we were talking about. You're letting go of your body as you know it.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good question. I think I'm going to explore this more in my time. Like, who are you being loyal to in a behavior? Totally. You know what I mean? Like, even with, like, for example, I realized this with food. I was eating sort of the working class food I grew up with, even though it was making me fat. And I was like, hang on a minute. This is some sort of sense of belonging and loyalty to a group of people I'm not even around anymore. It's not most of my friends these days are hippies. They eat vegan food. So it's like, these people aren't even around me anymore, and I'm somehow being loyal to them.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can work with a 75-year-old man and find that he's still being loyal to his dead father.
Wow. Yeah, it's an interesting frame. I like it. I might go and play with that one a little bit more.